Yeah, without much ado, let us welcome Professor Dr. James Koh to take over the floor, and let's hear him out about COVID-19. All over to you, brother.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. I was just telling Annie this morning that I totally forgot all about it until she said she sent me a text. So yeah, and she said she never sent anybody a text to remind them. So I guess it's providence. So good afternoon, and my name is James. No need all the titles and everything, is very weird. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Now can you see my screen?
Yes.
Do you see one slide or two slides?
Only one.
Okay, great. So that's fine then. So I have very few slides actually. So that will leave more time for Q&A. What I'm going to do for the next maybe 10 to 20 minutes is go through the basics of the vaccine for COVID, and then maybe a few slides on what is boosters, and then we'll take the Q&A, right? I'm going to skip this. So I'm going to make a few assumptions. One is that I see there are 24 people here. I'm going to assume that you believe that vaccines work, and you may have completed, or at least majority of you have completed your vaccinations, and now you are a bit ambivalent about the boosters, so that your vaccination could be with any of the brands that are available in Malaysia. So I'm just going to make these three assumptions, but I guess there may be other people in this group who may not agree with these assumptions, but I'm just going to work with these three assumptions. So the types of vaccines available for COVID, if you look at this slide, there are actually about 6 types of vaccines that we have been using for decades, actually. From the moment that we are born, we are vaccinated because the government has mandated certain vaccines to be mandatory for children. So by and large, all of us have received some sort of vaccines, and largely vaccines fall into these 6 categories. And if you look at the categories, it says RNA, DNA. These are all genetic materials. Viral vector means they use a virus that typically is not normally does not normally infect a person, but they use these viruses usually from other animals or so, and they insert genetic material into the virus and then introduce into our bodies. It's like a carrier, right? And the virus itself is not dangerous to the body, to the human body. Or some vaccines uses just the particle from the virus to make the vaccine. Some developers use the protein, some parts of the virus to use as a vaccine, and inactivated viruses is the actual vaccine, the actual virus, but it is inactivated, meaning it's rendered not dangerous, and then it is used as a vaccine. So if you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see we have Pfizer, we have AZ, and we have Sinovac. We don't have Moderna and J&J, but this is where they fall under. The Pfizer vaccine falls under RNA or mRNA vaccine. The AZ vaccine falls under viral vector. And the Sinovac vaccine is an inactivated virus. So all of us have received either one of these. Right? This slide is pretty old, and I first used this slide about a year ago when people were questioning how come within a year the mRNA vaccine could be developed. If you look at the picture at the top, that's the normal sequence of making a vaccine, right? You have a preclinical phase, and then it goes through typically 3 phases of human trials. and then approval will be given, or approval will be sought and given, and then manufacturing will be done once approval is obtained, and then it's distributed. So by and large, this process takes about 10 years usually. So it takes a while, and so it's not wrong for many of us to question how come the mRNA vaccine comes out so fast, because we know that vaccines takes a long time to produce. Now, what happened was with the mRNA vaccine, because of the urgency of the matter, there were a lot of funds, a lot of, a lot of focus, and the whole world globally, they are desperate to get out of COVID. So there are a lot of funding, a lot of research, and what the people, the pharmaceutical companies did was they bypassed certain phases. They didn't really, it's not that they did a shoddy work or cut short anything. What they did was they combined. So you can see preclinical phase is there. And there's this preclinical phase, the knowledge is from previous vaccines. We have used this strategy for other diseases, though not widely used. So what knowledge they have gained, they have actually used it there and then. They did phase 1, 2, and 3 overlapping, without not consecutively, but overlapping, because the results were encouraging. And they started manufacturing without the approval, or before seeking approval. So that sort of cut down a lot of time, and therefore the vaccine could be produced in a relatively short time. I'm not sure how many of you received the Pfizer vaccine. I have received the Pfizer vaccine, 3 doses, right? mRNA vaccine. And again, there are a lot of queries about how this mRNA works. Generally, what happens is that this mRNA, M stands for messenger. So it sort of have, it's like an instruction to the cell to produce certain things. I like to maybe use the example of buying a cupboard from IKEA. You never get a cupboard that is fully constructed. You can see in the showroom it's fully constructed, but when you buy it, it's in a flat box, and then you carry it home. And in that flat box, there's an instruction manual. And if you follow it nicely and carefully, you will be able to build a cupboard that is similar or the same as what you have seen in the shop. And thereafter, once you have built your cupboard, you throw away the instruction paper because you don't need it anymore. So the mRNA is like that. Once it's introduced into our muscle cells, we all get it on our shoulder. This mRNA enters the muscle cells. It instructs the cells to start producing a component of the virus, which is the spike protein. And these muscle cells will then display the spike protein on the surface for about 3 days before it disappears. And the mRNA itself disappears within the 3 days. So it doesn't stay on in the body. It doesn't integrate into our DNA. That's another fear that people have, right? I was giving a webinar yesterday on HIV. And HIV virus, I have spent 20 years of my life working with HIV, and HIV virus is a bit similar to COVID virus. It's also an RNA virus. It also enters the cell, but in this case, it's not respiratory cells, it's defense cells in the body, immune cells. And what it does is this HIV virus mRNA transform itself into a DNA, and then this DNA integrate into the human DNA. So it becomes very much a part of the person's DNA, and that's why it's so hard to get rid of the HIV. Whereas in COVID, the cells that they invade is the respiratory cells, and it doesn't produce the DNA to integrate into the human DNA. Similarly, the mRNA vaccine also does not become a DNA and then integrate itself into the human DNA. So it doesn't become a part of your genome, right? So I hope that reassures everyone. The dosage, I think all of us are very, very familiar. By and large, every one of them are 2 doses in the beginning. except for Janssen's vaccine, which is only one dose, but we only have AZ, Pfizer, and Sinovac. So they are all 2 doses in the beginning. I think we are all familiar with the vaccination symptoms. It gets sore at the area, you get fever, tired, headache, and muscle aches. With the booster, I've seen a slide recently when I went to give a talk in Selangor at the International Business Summit, and they show a slide of the side effects of booster dose, and generally the effect from a booster dose is same as first and second dose, but at a greater degree, right? And I had that same experience when I took my booster, because it was extra painful. I had underarm swelling, and I was very tired. And I had fever for the first time. I didn't have fever for the first 2 doses. I was totally out for about 24 to 36 hours before I could get up. And so I took medical leave. I seldom take medical leave, but that one really knocked me out. So boosters, I'd like to address the what, why, when, and mixing, right? So what is a booster shot? So a booster shot is basically an additional shot to what you have received, and it's meant to prolong your immunity. So in the beginning, we were told that there will be 2 shots. And even then, when I was giving webinars last year and this year, people always ask, will there be a booster? And my answer has always constantly been, yes, there will be, because I do not foresee that there'll be a time where we do not need a booster at that point. And true enough, within maybe a year now, authorities are saying, yes, you do need a booster, right? So are boosters common, or has it ever been done? Yes, we have actually used boosters in many of the vaccines that we receive. Like tetanus boosters are given once every 10 years. Chickenpox, measles, diphtheria, mumps, rubella, they all needed boosters for them to be effective. So we are actually quite used to the idea of booster. It's just that this time there was a bit of ambivalence, because a lot of people say, well, you said 2 doses is enough to get COVID under control. Now you're telling us we need a 3rd dose. So will there be a 4th dose, 5th dose? And God knows how many more doses are there, right? And there's another terminology I like to introduce here. Boosters and 3rd dose, although are the same, but they're not the same actually. In some people who are immunocompromised, like people with HIV or diabetes, or on steroids, or on chemotherapy, or have cancers, when they get the 3rd dose, we don't call it a booster, because the first 2 doses actually in these people didn't really produce a protective effect, right? So they need a 3rd dose. Whereas for the rest of us, when we receive a 3rd dose, we call it a booster, because we already have attained a protective effect with the first 2 doses, but with the booster, it's sort of, you get an extra, boost. That's why the word booster, and you sort of have a augmented protection, right? That's why in many countries, and even in Malaysia, the 3rd dose is not mandatory. It is advised, it is encouraged. They don't mandate it for you, right? So because we know that even with 2 doses, you are protected. Time have proven that protection with the vaccines wanes with time, especially with the Sinovac. Those of you who have received the Sinovac, you will be puzzled and say, Pfizer recipients, how come the booster only after 6 months after the 2nd dose, but for the Sinovac, after 3 months, I have to get a booster, right? And this is because we have evidence that after 3 months with the Sinovac, the protection, initial protection is about 54%. Actually, it's not that great either. But mind you, the definition of an effective vaccine is 50% and above. So the Sinovac actually fulfills that criteria when they first released it, and therefore it was widely used and it was available. That's the most important thing. It was available, so many countries bought the Sinovac. But real life, follow up, we found that at 3 months, your protection drops to about 28%. And it's not shown in this table, but at 6 months, most Sinovac recipients have no detectable protection or no neutralizing antibodies in their body. That's why there is an urgency to get the booster, especially for Sinovac recipients. Again, protection varies with types of vaccines. This is a picture from Sungai Buloh Hospital. And you can see that the green one is a Sinovac, and this is for admission in category 4 and 5. You can see that over time, more and more recipients of Sinovac compared to other vaccines, vaccine recipients are admitted with category 4 and 5 of COVID. In COVID, there are 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 4 and 5 are quite severe, quite serious. They need ICU care. 1, 2, 3 is all right in the wards, or even at home we can monitor, but 4 and 5, most of them will need ICU care. You can see here that if you look at all vaccine recipients, majority of them are Sinovac recipients. This is a nice picture from Dr. Amar. He's very, very vocal. I think you would have read many of his articles. Very well thought, very well written. And so you can see here that this is deaths by vaccination status in Malaysia. And this is very fresh data up to November, last month only. And you can see that those who did not receive any vaccines, the death rate is around 305 per million. Whereas compared to those who fully vaccinated, right, 14 days completed vaccination, the death rate is about 21 per million. So it's 21 versus 305. So anyone who is not vaccinated have about a 15 times higher chance of dying compared to those who are fully vaccinated. The next slide talks about people who have received vaccines. So here he compared the 3 vaccines, AZ, Pfizer, and Sinovac. And when these vaccine recipients passed away, we call that breakthrough death. That means despite the protection, they passed away. You can see that for Sinovac recipients, the death risk is 34 per million compared to 6 and 9 for AZ and Pfizer respectively. So Sinovac recipients have about 3.5 times higher chance of breakthrough deaths compared to Pfizer. So this is the recommended boosters by our government, right? So like Pfizer, 6 months after the second dose, and they are on the third column, you can see that they are recommending either Pfizer or AZ. If you have received Pfizer, then Pfizer or AZ. Then AZ will be, again, get back the AZ or the Pfizer. So you see for Sinovac, it says 3 months after the second dose, and the recommended one vaccines are either Pfizer's or AZ or again, the Sinovac. So the government is, initially I know when it was first proposed by KJ, our Minister of Health, he says Sinovac recipients will receive the Pfizer, and that caused a lot of hoo-has because I do know that many Sinovac recipients did not go for the Pfizer because they were afraid of mRNA or they were unsure about the technology behind mRNA, and they felt that what is tried and true, like traditional way of making vaccine, which is what the Sinovac vaccine is, would be safer. And so when KJ proposed that Pfizer is the booster, they got really upset about it. And now the government has sort of broaden the options to, you can choose either Pfizer, AZ, or Sinovac. Right? Mixing, yeah. So if you look at this chart, I'm at the top row, Pfizer one, second dose Pfizer, third dose food booster also Pfizer. What happens is if I take something like this, 3 Pfizers, I have a 62% reduction of infection risk after getting the booster, right? So the rest numbers are like increasing number of antibody. I was a bit worried because I finished my vaccine very early, early April, because as a frontliner, you get it first. And by the time, the whole world was told that they need a booster, it was already in September, October. I knew that I probably do not have as much protection as I had before, and but the workload is still the same. You see a lot of patient, and then Delta is there everywhere and all that. So that was worrying for me, right? So I got my booster in October. So what happens is that according to this study, I would have a 62% reduction in the risk. Doesn't mean 100% reduction, but yeah, a good reduction. I'm going to skip the second and third row and jump very quickly down to the last 2 rows. You see that Sinovac, third booster. The booster is a Sinovac. You can see there is a 74% effectiveness against COVID-19, up from 54. I told you the number was 54, right? Earlier, you received 2 doses of Sinovac, you will have a protection of 54%, right? But if you compare that to Sinovac, and Pfizer, the effectiveness rises to 95%. So there is this. This is from the Chile Ministry of Health, and it is very evident that mixing of the vaccine does boost your immunity or protection to a very high degree, right? Has mixing ever been done? And I was thinking about this, and yes, I do have a friend who did not respond to the hepatitis B vaccine. I'm not sure how many of you got your hepatitis vaccine, but he didn't respond. And he contacted me. He didn't produce any antibody at all when I tried. So what I did was I repeated the whole thing. Hepatitis B need the 3 doses. So first month, third month, 6th month. So I repeated the whole thing again. I tested him again. And again, he didn't produce any antibodies, right? And he was worried because he wanted to go to Australia to further his studies. This was a long time ago. And what I did next was consulted all the guidelines and everything. And so I had to use a separate brand to try and stimulate his immune system. And unfortunately, even using a different brand, he didn't produce any antibodies. So some people actually don't produce any antibodies to the vaccines. So in his case, what I did, it's not actually mixing, but I did use one brand first, and then I used a second brand, and he didn't produce anything. So I had to write him a letter saying that he's likely not to respond, and he managed to get to Australia anyhow. Just one slide on Omicron. I think this is the hot topic now. First detected or first declared just 9th of November, and this is in South Africa. They've done a great job. They have sequenced the genetics. They found that they were up to 32 mutations in the spike protein of the virus. So it is like a huge change from the Delta, which has about 5 mutations or so, and this new virus has 32 mutations on the spike protein, and that makes us a bit worried because our vaccines were not designed to recognize all these changes on the spike protein, right? What I've followed up on the news so far is that we don't know. Malaysia, we have 1 case already. Singapore, we have 2 cases. They're all imported. I do know, I've read that the Omicron is about 5 times more transmittable than the Delta, and 3 times higher risk of reinfection. That means if you get the Omicron, you get it again, and again, right? That's the bad news, right? And how to compare the Delta with if you compare the Delta with the Wuhan strain, the first virus that was detected, the Delta is about 2 times more infective, right? And now we have Omicron, which is 5 times more effective than the Delta, which was 2 times more effective than the Wuhan strain. So it's very highly infective, highly transmittable, and once you get it, you will get it again and again, 3 times more effective. But the good news is, so far, as I'm following the news, we are still learning about this virus. That's why we're still all waiting for more news. So far, what I've read is that the symptoms tend to be milder. There hasn't been any death reported in any patients who have been infected with the Omicron, and they typically do not have anosmia, that means loss of smell. Instead, people with Omicron reported the TAGI to be the single most troublesome symptoms. They say they're very, very tired, right? So yeah, we're still learning, and I think this is my last slide, then we can go to Q&A. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. Right, back to you, Annie.
Thank you, Dr. James. Very, very informative, although short but very concise. Okay, so far, no questions on chat box. So anyone has any questions? Okay, let's digest a little bit what the doctor...
Yeah, it's thundering here, so I'm hoping my internet will hold.
Yeah, I was wondering what noise was that? Thundering?
Yeah, it's very heavy rain and it's severe thunder outside. So.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, it sounds like moving boxes, like people shifting.
No, I'm not trying to run away.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any questions for the doctor today? Yes, May?
Okay. Hi, Dr. Kwee.
Hi. Yeah, just
one of
the
point, one of the points say that the third dose are for people with compromised immunity. How do you know whether your immunity is compromised?
Well, we have certain groups of people that we will consider to have compromised immunity. Specifically those like those who have HIV infection. We know that virus destroys the immunity, so that's one. People who are on what we call as immunosuppressants, that means they actually take the drugs to suppress the immunity. And why do they need this? Is because they have cancer and they have received a transplant, right? They may have received a blood transplant, bone marrow transplant, or they may have received a solid organ transplant. For instance, they have a kidney that's transplanted into because both kidneys have failed, they've got the kidney and they received the kidney. Those people will be on medications for lifelong to suppress the immunity. Otherwise, the person's immune system will destroy that transplant, right? So these people, by and large, will have very low immunity, right? So that's this group of people is what we meant. So my practice, Susie will know, I majority of my patients are HIV patients, and so when they receive 2 doses of the vaccine, we are quite concerned because they will not have been able to build enough antibodies to give them the protective effect. So therefore, they all need a 3rd dose, right? It's actually the same thing. It's just a name difference. That's all, right?
Okay, thank you.
Hope that's clear. Yeah. So if you are wondering whether you are in that group, so if you don't have any of the things that I have mentioned, then you're probably not in that group. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But you can see also the rollout of the boosters. They target the, I'm not going to use the word elderly here, but those who are above certain.
Seniors. Seniors.
Yeah, seniors. What warga emas lah. And so they target that first, because we know also the immune system of a senior compared to someone who is very young, again, is not that robust. So therefore, when the rollout of the boosters, they actually targeted that first. And then later on, only KJ started saying that, oh yeah, I'm going to give them to everyone who is 40 and above. Then after that, it expanded to now 18 and above. So everybody basically gets it. But again, he did not ever say that it's mandatory. So I think I like that stance by the government, although a mandated vaccine would have made everybody's life a lot easier, but there are a lot of other issues if you mandate a vaccine that will crop up. I think the freedom of choice given by the government, I think it's something that we should celebrate about. So it's a very respectful decision. It's a good decision, and I think it's something that I really value.
Thank you, Doctor. So there's another question from Mr. Mark. He says, hi, my wife contracted COVID in August. Does she need a booster at this time?
Yes, she does. Because we also found that natural antibody doesn't last as long as don't want to use the word unnatural, but natural antibody means antibodies that you build from an infection with COVID. It does not last as long as vaccine-induced antibodies. That means, so you may have recovered from COVID, and you would have built some antibody towards that, but it will not last very long. Studies have shown about 2 to 3 months, and that's it, it's gone. Right? That's why it makes us susceptible again to another bout of reinfection. Right? I saw in the chat box, it says, does the booster dose contain half the original dose? Not really, actually. The booster dose is the same dose as the original first and second dose, except for children. And that the dose is actually less. And that was an issue earlier. I'm not sure whether the issue has been resolved because, you know, in the US, they are already giving the booster to those who are 12 to 17. And one of the issue here is that we may not be able to deliver or accurately the dose needed. But I also read that our Malaysian Medical Association, say that the doctors and nurses are so well versed with volumes of fluid, we should not have a problem. I'm not sure whether they've sorted that out yet, right? So yes, the doses for children is actually much less than compared to adults. But in adult, it's the same dose. I got 0.3 of the Pfizer.
Doctor, actually for the children now, it's only 18 years and above?
Yes, for now, because they have not made a decision about the younger ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, another question posed is, I have allergy against penicillin and certain fruits like dragon fruits, tomatoes. Both of his 2 doses are Sinovac. So is it safe for him to take Pfizer as the booster?
It should be safe. It should be safe. Because if you have allergy, you need to alert the center when you how do you say, when you register, and we will observe you for an extra time. I have a neighbor here, which I took a long time to convince her to go for the vaccine. She has a condition where she has an autoimmune condition. She's not just allergic to certain things like antibiotics or fruits. She is basically allergic to herself. She has a condition where her body produces antibody and practically attacks everything in her. So she, I got to know her through, I'm during the MCO, nothing to do, so I started indoor gardening and all that. And I got to know her from exchanging plants. So we are called plant daddies and plant mummies, I don't know. So I got to know her, and I actually visited her because she wanted to give me some plants, and I noticed her to be very dehydrated and dry, and her, I didn't want to say anything. And later on, when we got to know each other better, she started telling me that she has this problem. And I said, yeah, I sort of suspected you have this problem because you look like somebody who has this problem. So basically, she has immune antibodies that attacks her sweat glands, her skin, and everything. And she has had several anaphylaxis. That means major allergy to anything. And she was a nurse in ICU and all that. And she was very worried about the vaccine, right? And justifiably so, because she has had several really bad experience. And but I managed to convince her to go for it because I told her the alternative would be to stay at home forever, right? Because there's no other alternative. Yeah, you either go for the vaccines, or the alternative, if you can, just stay in a cave forever or an island. And she cannot do that because she has only one son. And she wants to visit that son, and she wants to go out. She wants to do things with the son. And so she took that brave step and she went for the vaccine, and it was uneventful. She was very happy because I arranged for it. And she texted me and she said, I got it. I'm fine. I'm actually nothing's don't feel anything also. The next day she texts me, she says she feels a bit tired, but she's fine. She didn't suffer any reaction. She received the Pfizer vaccine. Yep. So again, I have to admit that we will never know what will happen if you have an allergy. If you take the vaccine, what will happen? But I just want to reassure you that you will be observed for a longer time, and there is a button in the MySejahtera which you can report about the because anaphylaxis usually occurs very, very fast. The moment you get the vaccine, it will occur very fast if you have a major reaction. So all the other reactions are usually very mild.
Oh, means doctor, within the next 1 hour after the vaccination, the person is allergic.
Yep.
And see something.
You will get, yeah.
All right. Okay. Any more questions, brothers?
One more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in second week of November, I got my booster appointment, and I rejected that date because it's like I'm not well.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I 2 days ago, I got another appointment for 8th December, and I'm also now in a dilemma because I'm afraid. On the 10th, 2 days later, our kindergarten has a concert, and I have to be involved with the children dancing.
Yeah.
So with that, my colleagues already have it and have sore arm and unwell, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
So I will be like out, and I can't be afford not to be at the concert. So for example, if I reject this date again, will the government give me a third appointment date?
I can't say that whether they'll give you a date or not, but I can share with you that my own experience with SARS when it first appeared in Malaysia. This is SARS-2, by the COVID is called SARS-CoV-2. I'm talking about SARS, the first one. And I was working as a medical officer in Seremban Hospital, and we were so busy. There were not many cases, of course, but we were afraid, and we said no, nobody should go to Singapore because there are many cases there. And as a doctor, we're on call for 2 weeks at a go. We can't go home, so I had to stay in this ward and take care of SARS patients. And at the same time, I got into the master's program to train as a specialist. And the consultant in keep emailing me and calling me and saying, you need to get into campus. And I was telling her that I can't. I say they need me because there are not enough people. There's so many cases, and I need to work. They need me and all that. And her reply stunned me. She said, no one is indispensable. That's something that I learned so much in my I think one word from her. I dropped everything and I went to UN. And people in Seremban didn't even miss me actually. So they obviously the work can be done by someone else. I'm not saying what you're contributing to the dance group is unimportant. It is very important, but I think your life is more important. Your health is more important. If I were you, I would go for it. And if I don't feel so well 48 hours later, I may not dance, but I will still be there. It's quite safe for you to be there.
No, it's not matter of be there. I have to show them the movement.
Exactly. You can still show them the movement.
Children being children, they can't remember.
Yeah,
anything.
I know. My wife,
if my initially the arm supposed to there and my arm cannot raise out. If I did that, everybody will follow me like that.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. You can raise it. Yes. It's not
my colleague already have it and they cannot raise it. I
can still raise my arm despite being horizontal for 24 hours. I could still raise my arm.
I mean, dilemma. If they give me after appointment, that I will sort of.
You can alleviate the symptoms by taking paracetamol. You can. It doesn't. It is all right to take Panadol to alleviate.
You mean as a painkiller?
Yeah, you can take it. Yeah. Not an issue.
But doctor, I understand these days there are some hospitals like the Sunway Medical Center and the SGMC, Subang Jaya Medical Center. I think right now they open for walk-ins. Is it true?
I'm not sure about that. You may have to. I am familiar in Seremban, and yes, we do have walk-in. I'm actually also a physician at the Nilai Medical Center and the UCSI hospital, and both our centers have walk-in.
That means anyone can just walk in and request for the booster.
Yeah, they are offering Sinovac. They're not offering Pfizer. I'm not sure what SGMC is offering though. I know some clinics in KL are offering Pfizer, but in the two hospitals I am affiliated to, we offer Sinovac, and they have to pay for it.
They have to pay. But this one in SGMC and Sunway is actually, I think, free. Pfizer.
Right. Then yeah, you may have. I'm not sure actually. I don't have any information about that.
Yeah. May which area is convenient for you?
I can find out because I have a friend who works in Sunway. So.
This second is a clinic Oasis Jalan Othman.
Maybe you can also reschedule. You can just call up and reschedule to maybe after the event.
I prefer after .
Can be done. Yes.
Yeah. May, my daughter also got her free vaccination at this Oasis clinic in Ara Damansara. Just make an appointment, walk in, and then they will give it to you. It's free of charge. It's Pfizer.
That's great.
Yeah, it's Pfizer. I called up. Yeah.
Yeah. So go and enjoy your concert. And then immediately go and arrange for vaccination.
Famous recording of the dancers. Yeah.
Then you have the best of both worlds.
Great.
Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions?
Yes, Dr. James. Hi, good afternoon. I would like to find out, I've got both doses of AZ.
Yes.
So when is will I be notified of my booster jab? Or can I just go to any of the jab that is being offered?
Well, you noticed my slide earlier. You can wait up to 6 months actually, and I know that some of the AZ recipients, many of my students are AZ recipients, and they are already getting notifications via the MySejahtera. So you sort of have to wait lah. I wouldn't recommend you to walk in yet because I'm not sure when did you get your AZ? Do you remember?
In July.
July. So you fast forward 6 months from there, you still have quite a bit of time. Yeah.
I see. So
yeah.
I don't have to go for any of the booster jab.
You don't need to because those people who receive before July may need the booster more.
I see.
But they will notify because my students got already starting to receive notifications.
Oh, because I'll be going to UK next year somewhere in early May. So I need to get the booster jab before I go, you see.
Yeah.
So if
Definitely
I don't get
will get before that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. It's quite efficient. I think that despite some, every now and then some hiccups, but it's actually quite efficient. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Caroline, yeah.
Yes. Yes, Dr. James, based on what KJ reports, there were about 40% of recipients who have stayed away from the booster. And I believe the 40% could be Sinovac recipients.
Yeah.
To me, 40% is significant.
It is.
And I'm also a recipient of Sinovac.
Yeah.
Likewise, neither WHO or other renowned organizations have given us scientific data to say that it is okay to mix. So how do you think you could help us, therefore debunk this myth that mixing is not something that is already established and proven good, so to speak?
I think I need to maybe put everybody into try to understand what's going on. Okay, WHO is World Health Organization, right? And the policies of WHO are always tailored for the most disadvantaged country. All right. So if someone works in the WHO, they will look at all the evidence and when they release a guideline, that guideline is meant for the poorest of poor countries in the world, right? That's why, for instance, for example, in HIV medicine, if you read WHO guidelines, it says HIV positive mothers can carry on and breastfeed their children, which is something that we are like, oh, we can't. No, we can't do that. Yeah, but you can see that in the WHO guideline, right? You won't find it now, but that was a while ago. That was because at that point of time, poor countries couldn't afford medicine for HIV, right? And we know that up to 1/3 of babies who are breastfed by HIV positive mothers will get HIV, right? Oh. Yeah. So if you look at that kind of statistics and you look at WHO's guideline, you'll be shocked, it says, how can WHO say this, But what else can they offer? Because you have a country that can afford medications. You have HIV positive mothers who are pregnant. We know that 1/3 of them who breastfeed will transmit the virus to the baby, right? But 2/3 of them will survive without HIV. You see, the guidelines are made in such a way by WHO for the poorest of poor countries. So when we read it, we are not the poorest of poor countries. When we read it and we're like, oh, WHO say no booster needed. WHO say no mixing needed because the poorest of poor countries cannot even afford vaccines at the moment. We have to see that from the perspective of the WHO. And that's why you see guidelines are like that coming out. And sometimes we misunderstood it because we think that guideline is meant for us. It's actually meant for the entire world, right? And many parts of the world, there are people who have not received even the first dose of vaccine. It will be very unjust for WHO to say, guys, let's go for a booster when so many countries have not even got their first dose. So I hope that kind of put you in perspective. The other authority is the CDC, which we always read. And CDC is tailored for rich countries. If you look at the guidelines of CDC, they are given out for countries that can afford practically anything, right? So you can see the discrepancy in the guidelines, So how come A is saying this and B is saying this? But they are catering to different audience, right? When CDC release and say boosters okay, they're okay because countries that are listening to the CDC, they can afford it. And most of their citizens have already received 2 doses. That's why you see these big differences between the two. And that's why you see WHO say, no mixing, right? But the data I've shown you are from countries that have gone ahead and mixed, all right? Guidelines are guidelines. It is not the 10 commandments. It's not like thou shalt not kill and then you cannot kill. Guidelines are there to guide you. It's like making a cake. You can read 2 grams of this, 3 grams of that, and all. What we do is we just pinch here, pinch there, and just throw it in. We don't even measure, right? Because guidelines are there. But some countries have decided not to follow the guidelines and gone ahead for their country. And like Chile, they've gone ahead and mixed the vaccines. And then they release the results and tell you that, hey, look, when we mix it, they actually have far greater neutralizing antibodies. See? So this type of message is not going out through the community because people don't understand that WHO is an organization that is built to cater to the health needs of the entire world, whereas the CDC is built to cater to the needs of rich countries. That's why the guidelines are so different. I hope that helps, right?
Wow.
Yes, it does. Except that that KJ made a statement to say that that those of us who are mixing are deemed as guinea pigs because they're not enough of scientific data. I think that put me off.
Yeah.
If it came from just anybody, it's fine, but it came from KJ.
Well, I must say I have a lot of respect for him in doing his work. I mean, compared to the previous guy, he set the standard so low that everyone who is after him would excel, basically, right? I don't want to name names, but yeah, he really does a great job. But we have to also be aware that he may not know everything. One thing good about KJ is, compared to the previous chap, is that he has a group of people who are experts behind him who would advise him. And so far, I think his advisors are quite sound. All his policies are quite sound, right? So I'm actually quite confident with this chap doing his work, although he's not a doctor. The previous fellow was a doctor and he does an awful job. So yeah, no comment. But this chap, yeah, he's really doing a good job, and he has got a solid team, and his team comprises of people from both divides. I'm aware of that because some of my colleagues are in the team. And both divide meaning both political divide, whether pro or not so pro government, they are in this team, and I think that's great, and that they're advising this chap about policies. I know we have a trust deficit. I have a severe trust deficit with how our country is run, but I'm quite confident with this chap.
Dr. Kwee, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Looking into the history of mankind, I mean, the pandemics like come and go, and we have gone through SARS in like 2012, and now we have this COVID. Do you see that this COVID is going to stay with us, stay with the mankind for many years to come, or you're just going to see this disappear like 2-3 years and you mutate themselves into, and disappear?
Actually, sorry, I have to disagree. Yeah, one thing is true. Every 10 years we have one pandemic. Okay, 8 to 10 years if you count properly. Yeah, I've gone through 3 pandemics already. If I count HIV, then 4, right? But the part I disagree with you is that the pandemics actually never went away. None of the pandemics went away. The pandemic of HIV is still with us 40 years later. It's still going on. SARS is still there. MERS-CoV is still there, right? It's just that we don't go to Middle East and drink camels' urine. If the whole world suddenly decide to drink camels' urine, then we have a problem with MERS-CoV everywhere. That's the problem. So the pandemic actually never go away. Okay, it may mutate, it may change, but yes, in the history of mankind, yes, we learn to live with it. Whether we learn or not is not an issue. We have to learn. We have to live with it, or we are forced to live with it. Just like any other, any of the viruses, like HIV. Many people who are infected with HIV have, I won't say even learn, but they are forced to live with it. I don't think pandemics go away. It just mutates. Hopefully, it will become milder. Like some authors are already saying that the Omicron could be actually a lifesaver for everyone. It does look that way now with the data that we have. That's the thunder, not moving boxes. That's
very loud.
Thunder today. I don't know why. Not don't dare to go afterwards. But yeah, some people are saying that the Omicron is so transmittable, so infective, and yet gives such low symptoms or mild symptoms that it may crowd out the Delta, right? And I think that's great news, actually. I'm just waiting. Very exciting days for me as a ID doctor, reading news that coming out fast and furious to see what's going on. I can't offer anything more than that from what I've known. But some people are saying that this could be the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know. Well, 1 year ago, somebody said vaccine was the light at the end of the tunnel. But yes, actually, it is actually, because if not for the vaccine, we would not be where we are now, actually. I wanted to start by saying congratulations, we have survived 2 years of the pandemic. And that's amazing, I tell you. So many people have passed away. We lost so many patients. And we learned so much from managing the people that we lost, right? So I'm actually very grateful that we are all here today.
Any more questions? Perhaps I will ask one myself. Dr. James, how can we speedily strengthen ourselves, our immunity, to face the daily challenges with the current endemic? We hopefully this Omicron is actually the signs of endemic that we are looking forward.
I don't know, such a tough question to answer.
Should we eat? Like you said, do you think vitamin C, all the vitamins or antioxidants?
I see there are so many things good that came out from the pandemic. I mean, there are a lot of bad, but for me, there's so many things that are good, Never before in our lives have we been so obsessed about washing hands, so obsessed about cleaning surfaces, I am so happy nowadays to see public toilets having soap. It never used to be available. Now, of course, with the MCO lifted and all, I'm starting to see the soap all disappear. I don't know whether it's being lifted or, raptured.
Pilferage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so many things have, and you know why? It's some of and you know, working in the hospital, we hardly see any dengue. You know, we hardly see any food poisoning and things like that. You know, why? Because people have changed their lifestyle. In the face of the pandemic, we have changed our lifestyle. You can see that we totally embrace things that we never used to do. You know, we wear masks very automatically now. I absolutely despise wearing a mask, and I have to wear it for many hours in a day. It's very, very uncomfortable while working. We hate it. I long for the day where we can remove the mask, right? But all these lifestyle changes actually kept us alive. And when you ask me, what are the things that you can do to speedily build up your immunity? I think first thing you got to ask ourselves is, what are the habits and lifestyle that are actually detrimental to our immunity in the first place? Do we have diabetes and we don't care about it? Do we have high blood pressure and we don't bother about the control? You can see that people who don't do well with the COVID are the people with all these issues, being overweight, having uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled high blood pressure, smokers. These are all things that we could easily remedy, right? Vitamin C, yes, go ahead. I have not read of any evidence that it works, but it can work. I mean, it does help in your digestive system. That much I do know. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not really very familiar with supplements and taking what to build up your immunity. I do know that exercise does work. It will build up your immunity, and that's why I tell my patients with HIV. I tell them their diet they have to watch and the exercise that they need to do to build immunity, and that's very evidence-based. The rest I don't have a lot of experience with. I can't tell you that, oh, you got to take product A to make your immunity better. I don't have that magic bullet. Yeah.
It's again the package, good living habits and environment.
I foresee that well, we're sort of like delayed our moving into endemicity. We have delayed it by what's his name, Hussein On's son, and because of the Omicron, because we don't know much about the Omicron, but I do foresee that not too far in the future, we will be able to take off our masks, right? We will be able to see each other smile again.
All will come to pass.
Yeah, well, it won't pass. But the virus will still be there. But we have better tools then, and we have better medications and better immunity then. We will be able to take off the mask and live. You know, like influenza has been with us for donkey years, decades, centuries, in fact. But we never walk around with masks because we have learned to live with it, actually. So I think COVID will go that way as well.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions?
One more. So,
yes.
So if we go ahead, Doc, with the booster, is there a likelihood that the subsequent year we may need another booster and the subsequent year another booster?
Yes.
Yes, huh?
Yes, and yes, and yes.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Still, the choice is ours to jab or not to jab.
If you want to have a protection against tetanus, which we don't bother actually, if you think about it, how many of you actually take your tetanus jab every 10 years? You don't. You only take it once you stub your toes against a rusty nail, then you start to worry. And you'll be wondering like, God, when was my last tetanus jab? No, that happened to me because I also never bother about my tetanus booster. But you are supposed to take it every 10 years, you know. We are supposed to do it, but we don't do it because we conveniently forget, and we don't usually stub our toes against a rusty nail and die of tetanus, you know. Only when we stub our toes, then only you say, oh my goodness, when's my last dose? I don't even remember. Yeah. You see, So yeah, vaccines are contrary to some messages I read on social media. They were ridiculing vaccines and saying, "Oh, they say the vaccines will be the thing," and then now they tell us the booster. Then they need another booster, another booster. Yes, of course. I mean, throughout our histories, vaccines have always been like that. You will always need a booster, barring a few, special vaccines. For the rest of the vaccines, you will always need a booster. Your BCG vaccine, when we got as a little child, not even aware to protest it, because it was given to us the moment we gave our first cry anyway, right? We can't even protest. All of us have a scar to show for it. Didn't really protect us against tuberculosis, if I would leak out to you. It only protects you against tuberculosis for the first 10 to 12 years of your life. After that, you have as much risk as anyone else to get TB, right? So why did we give it then? Because we need to protect our children. We need to protect the children from TB. They don't survive so well if they get TB, right? So the vaccine was designed to give protection for the first 10 to 12 years. After that, you're on your own, actually. We are all on our own, actually, when it comes to TB, right? So we make a vaccine that protects our children. That's what happens, you see? Yeah. So vaccines are not designed to be the cure-all for everything. There never was that kind of message, actually. But I read in social media a lot of that, and it makes me very sad because people misunderstand this. They say, "Oh, the vaccine was the promise, the salvation that, if I given the vaccine, I'm free from COVID." That was never the message, actually.
This is a good reminder for us that this is what vaccine is all about. It's never for it's not a permanent thing with just one vaccination.
I just want to share a story. I had somebody who text me and asked for advice because there's a church elder in another church, I don't think it's your church, who wrote a very strong letter to the pastor, condemning the pastor for, asking people to get vaccinated and following SOPs. Because according to this person, he says that where is the power of God? If you are going to depend on vaccines, where is the testimony of the power of God and a protective effect of the power of God? If we allow this, you are basically succumbing to the designs of the world as such, And they were at the dilemma of how to address this, right? It perplexed me for a while. I was thinking about it when I went out for my run that night, and I was reminded about Jesus and the 10 lepers, right? I think we all know the story where the 10 lepers came to him and he healed all 10 and only one came back to say thank you, right? But if you look at the story and if you know the Old Testament, leprosy has always been there in the Old Testament. Now, when the Old Testament write about leprosy, it may not be the leprosy that we know today, right? But we do know that the practice, especially in Deuteronomy, is such a boring book to read because it's all about hygiene. You got to wash how many times go out present yourself to the priest. You open that book and you go, and you wonder, my God, why did God allow such a book to be published? So boring. Actually, that book is a public health manual. For hygiene, for community hygiene. Actually, if you read that book with that perspective, you realize that the steps are there to prevent spread of infection in the community. Okay, I digress. Back to this issue is that in the Old Testament, when somebody is deemed to have leprosy, they cannot live in the community. They have to go out. They are actually cast out from the community. Why do they do that? Because it is an infectious disease, right? And then when Jesus' time came, did he say, no, 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 under the new law, leprosy are no longer infectious, you may come back to the community? No, he didn't. He still followed the tradition, but he healed them. He never condemned the practice of separating people with potential infectious disease from the community. So that's what I used to advise my friend, to tell the elders and say, use this example. The church now is going to go face-to-face worship. You open the doors, but you're telling your people, clean your hands, wear a mask, social distance, right? Why? Because the infectious diseases are still there. And if Jesus didn't condemn the practice of separating those with infectious disease, like this person is very upset because he's unvaccinated and he wants to go to church, and the elders say, no, you cannot come to church because you're unvaccinated. It's the same principle. It's like the leper saying that, no, 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 I'm a Jew. I'm definitely coming to the synagogue to pray because I'm a Jew. I have the right, to pray in the synagogue. But I have leprosy, right? If the Old Testament have this practice, Jesus never condemn this practice of separating people with infectious disease out of the community. Then I think it's very fair for the pastor to institute this, that if you are unvaccinated, you should not come to the church, right? And there's another perspective I want to address, because unvaccinated people always think that they are discriminated against. That is a wrong perspective, right? Unvaccinated people are being protected by what we are putting in. Okay, we are telling you don't come not because you are a danger to us. Don't come because we may be a danger to you. That is the perspective. I don't know why this message is not going out. People always think that, I'm unvaccinated, I can't do this, I can't do that. The rules are put there not to discriminate, but to protect them. Because if I get COVID, I am less likely to die than if an unvaccinated person gets COVID from me. So I think that message has to go through, that we are protecting them, we are not discriminating against them. But the message is just not getting through, unfortunately. Yeah, I've said my piece, thanks.
Yeah, but then there's also a question for those who were not vaccinated. If they were the one who caused the COVID, so-called passed the COVID-19 to another person, then will they be faulted because of that?
No,
because they're not vaccinated.
We cannot. No, everybody, whether vaccinated or not vaccinated, you are at risk of getting COVID. And the risk is the same. The risk is the same, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. There's nothing to feel bad or guilty about passing it. Because if you have COVID and you pass it to someone, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated makes no difference. Right? But whether you survive it is another story. Okay. Yeah. I don't think it should be that way.
Yeah, I guess it's all about this is what we call the EQ, the emotional intelligence, on being able to see the two sides of the coin, whether and how we want to like you see the different perspectives.
Yeah, because we always harp on one perspective, we don't see it from the other perspective. Many people are at fault, and I'm also at fault sometimes. And our government is definitely at fault. The message is not tailored in such a way. The message being told to unvaccinated people sounds very harsh, very discriminative. Right? the message should be tempered with a lot of love, because the message is, I'm doing this for your own good.
Yeah. So it's like do it for your own good, your own self-protection.
I'm saying you can't come into a restaurant, it's for your own good. Because if both of us get COVID, I have less chance of dying compared to you.
Yeah. But anyway, we are known to be one of the few countries with the fastest number of biggest number of adult population.
Amazing. I mean, regardless of how we dislike what's going on in our country, this is something that we should be very proud of. It is amazing. We have vaccinated the entire country in such a short time. It's truly amazing. No, but I think no country can boast of this. We have 33 million people, and to vaccinate everyone within 6 months, we have 97% vaccination rate. So amazing.
But are these figures for real? I mean, like, nowadays we get so many figures, but the other side of the coin is that, is it true? Is it really?
I don't know. I like to believe it is. If we have to question our own figure, then when we look at the chart of other countries, we'll need to also question their figure as well.
Yeah. We have put a lot of trust, huh?
Yeah, I'm actually more concerned for other countries like Vietnam and Laos, South African countries, other than where South Africa is. South Africa is quite rich actually compared to the others, that for them to reach, like Vietnam, for them to reach full immune status will take 10 years at the rate they are going. We did it in 6 months. So which statistics do you want to believe in? Don't know.
Well, we have to trust lah. These are the only source anyway, right?
Yeah, we have to trust. And I don't think that people have a lot of time to play with statistics. I definitely don't have time to play with statistics. I know some people say, oh, this is some major conspiracy. To make a conspiracy, you really need to have a lot of meetings actually. And everybody has to agree to say the same thing. Just like Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. The whole world tells us that it's a conspiracy. And why do we keep holding on to the fact that it is not? The whole world tells us it's a conspiracy. It's the Roman, Pontius Pilate tell the guards, and everybody keep quiet, shut up, don't say anything. It's the body was stolen and all that. They say it's a conspiracy. And yet we stand firm and say no, it isn't. So funny, isn't it? We believe that happened 2,000 years ago. We don't believe what's going on here. So weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really we really need God's wisdom lah, and to be able to discern what is real and what is not so real, in order for us to go ahead and move on in life.
What I can tell you what is real is, in my hospital, I don't have that many COVID patients now compared to 1 year ago. That is real.
Hallelujah.
You can believe me on that, because last year, every ward in my hospital is a COVID ward. Every single ward is a COVID ward. Now we have 2 COVID wards. And the rest of the wards are back to normal. That is real.
It's a real phenomenal.
It's not a conspiracy. It is not a conspiracy. I can tell you from my own experience that we only left with 2 wards, which are COVID wards. Yeah,
97% vaccinated already, ma.
Yeah, I know. That's why, so it shows, the results shows, somebody was asking me in my WhatsApp group and saying, aren't you worried every day we have 5,000-6,000 cases? I say, yeah, but we have 5,000-6,000 cases with people traveling all over the place. Shopping, eating, watching movies, partying, churching, I don't know, is there such a word? compared to 2 months ago when nobody is going, not 2 months, maybe 4 months ago, when nobody is going anywhere and we have 20,000 cases a day. Everybody is stuck at home, not doing anything, and yet we have 20,000, which is more worrying. I say I'm not worried. 5,000-6,000 to me is okay because people are traveling. How come we are not seeing 60, 70, 80,000? People are traveling. They're going everywhere. You know, both my kids are in KL. I worry about them. So keep telling them to wear a mask. You know, but yeah, people are traveling everywhere. How come we are not worried anymore? I'm not worried. I see the vaccine is working. It's protecting the people, right? 1 to 2% of them are unvaccinated. I retract that. 1 to 2% of daily cases are in category 4 and 5. Isn't that reassuring? I mean, compared to what it used to be.
No, I mean that definitely we see a great progress. We've got more confidence to go back to the new normal.
True. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any last question for Dr. James now? Okay, if not, then maybe I'd like to close with a prayer.